A Tale of Two Playstyles. So first off, I'm trying standing, see how that goes. Second, I've got a cup of coffee, prop work. Yeah. Uh. And third, there's been, well, I'm inundated by cats. The neighborhood is full of cats, wild, feral cats, panhandling and asking for money, as well as screaming out loud all around the neighborhood. And I feel a bit like Charlie Kelly, and that I'm going to need to start eating cat food, downing it with beer, and occasionally huffing glue. Don't huff glue; it's bad. Don't do that. But that's the feeling that I've been having over the past couple of days. Uh, Today we're going to talk about two different kinds of play styles, and I haven't really come up with a great way to phrase it. What the working version? I want better terms, but the working version is professional versus social. Now, by professional, I mean focused on gameplay. So, well versed in the rules, types of players, but not min-maxing per se, but just focused on they know the rules for their characters, they know the role that they want to play, and they're there, and like that is the game. And you could probably put them in with any group anywhere, and as long as the rest, like a boy, that got rambly. You could put them in a group anywhere, like say tournament play, things like that, and they'll be just fine. And then there's the other group, social, where what it means is the game rules don't really matter to them, or if they do, they still take a second seat to socially getting around with friends. And they'd be just as happy sitting around having a beer with each other as having a cup of coffee or playing a role-playing game. And neither one of these play styles are mutually exclusive. Of course, a lot of people that would fall under that, again, I don't like saying it because it implies the other group isn't professional. And the same thing with saying that they're social implies the other one isn't social. And so just the caveat here is it's a definite smeared out blurry mess, and there's no one actual right way to game or right way to play, and both are fun, and they're great. But I'm going to point out some of the problems that can arise from the social aspect. I'm running two groups. Turns out I'm a poly DM, I guess, because I can run two different systems, and I'm fine with it. I'm not great at the Pathfinder second edition stuff yet. I'm still learning a lot of it, or getting the feel down for it, and the kind of ad hoc openness to the D&D 5th edition. I've taken a liking to it. Not Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, given their past stuff, but I've taken a liking to the just kind of openness, and you don't have to worry too much about this or that. That Pathfinder 2e gets a little more nitty gritty with, but I do like the nitty gritty as well. So it's just laziness, really, on my part. Anyway, so I'm running two groups. One Pathfinder 2nd Edition, one Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. The 5th Edition one, I think we're going on year 3. I haven't checked. In the 40s. We haven't yet hit 50 sessions, and we're about every 2 weeks is how often we play. And for the Pathfinder 2e, every 2 weeks, and I think we're on early 20s. But so running both of these groups, it's very interesting to be able to compare and contrast the play styles, because in one group I've been on and off playing with since or for nearly what, I don't know, 2002. So yeah, for 20 years. I mean, pretty regularly. There's been, a couple hiatuses here and there, and a couple breaks, but otherwise, pretty consistently, at least for the first 15 years, once a week, every week, except for when holidays interfere, right? So, and then the other group, uh, half half of the group is comprised of my friends from high school and family, and so I played with them when I was in high school and earlier, middle school as well, and a little bit in college when I come back to visit. And so that's what brought me to this observation that the group that I've been playing with for 20 years is largely in that focused on gameplay camp, right? And the other group from high school are large, and the other half of the group are new players. So they're new players to role playing games in total, as well as high school friends who haven't picked up role playing very much. Like they dabbled a little bit here and there, but otherwise they just really they haven't involved themselves in years long campaigns over decades since high school. So and so the high school group, a large part of it is socializing, is getting to see old friends, especially since we all live very far away from each other, and yeah, and both of them are wonderful. I know maybe my expressions aren't uh, belying that, because I'm very self-conscious and I'm very worried that my friends will see this as uh, being mean, which is not something that I care to do at all. So um, this is just interesting observations between two different types of play styles of players that is interesting to compare and contrast, and looking at the social style, seeing um, what the where the problems arise in the game, because I mean, we're having fun, so there's not a problem there, but there are issues that pop up that are interesting to me that I haven't seen in a while. So the first observation is in timing. So the social aspect group, we've been playing fifth edition. Did my homebrew for a little bit, and then I took them into Barovia with Curse of Strahd, and we've been on that for about a year and a half, and we finally had the dinner with Strahd. So a lot of fun, but it was interesting because I would say a lot of the players aren't focused on the getting into the role. They aren't interested so much so as in the acting. They're interested in the effects and the action, and if role playing brings action, that's great. But largely, there's not many. Like in the other group, there will be moments where one or more of the players will just start talking to each other and just have a conversation, and it might last 15-20 minutes of them just having a conversation in character as their characters. And yeah, I don't see that in the social group. If there is talking, it is usually out of character and with each other about things. And again, neither playstyle is bad or wrong. There's no bad role playing here, or playing the game here, or wrong way to play the game here. And I know I myself will often go off on these tangents with either player group, as well. because the personal out of character conversations still happen in the focused on gameplay group, but there's a clear distinction between we're talking in character now and we're just shooting the shit. So with the other group, with the social focused group, there's it's very hard, at least for me as a DM, to distinguish between when players are talking in character and when they are talking out of character. And usually that's not a huge problem because I can pause, I can do things, to kind of like, wait, did you say that in character, etc. But sometimes I get wrapped up in the role playing of a character, and I'm sitting there and I'm playing Strahd, inviting them to dinner, and now we're eating dinner, and I'm letting them ask questions and discuss with Strahd the various things that are on their minds. And Strahd is answering a lot of their questions according to, what Strahd would respond with. And then I'm not sure exactly how it occurred, but it was something like Strahd was mentioning how, after dinner, the party is free to explore his castle, go on a tour. Just be warned that, my invitation of safety only applies to me, Strahd, and the rest of the castle will do what it wishes and what it wants. So don't count on complete safety within the castle. And I think one player was like, yeah, okay, let's go do that. And then another player and I thought it was in character. It sounded like it was in character. But again, it's difficult to tell because in the social group, there aren't these clear delineations of, this is what my character, this is what my cleric really thinks and would really act in this situation, to just kind of, wouldn't this be funny type of, comments. So one player just said, yeah, let's get out of here and let's do that. And it sounded like it was coming from the character, and it also sounded very rude and to Strahd, and just like, well, fine, if you're done with my hospitality, go. And so Strahd dismissed them quickly and left. And that seemed I haven't asked the players, but based on events after that, it would seem like that wasn't their intent, that they would have liked to have a bit more time with Strahd, especially since a lot of them, don't like role playing, being in the role and doing, even doing a separate voice, but just talking seriously as if they're not themselves, but they're somebody else. That isn't their bag. And that's the interesting thing, is that I've got to switch gears as a DM when I'm playing with this group to really kind of figure out where the in-character actions and talk is happening versus where out-of-character actions and talk is happening. And normally it works fine. A bunch of friends having fun, playing a game, shooting the shit, and it works. Except for in the instances where it can get dramatic or maybe even comedic, because once you start trying to do something silly, it's far easier to entertain your fellow players with comedy that's situated in the world that we inhabit rather than the world the characters inhabit. There's you don't go around today hearing a lot of burlap sack jokes. They're there, but we don't hear them that much these days. So and even if we did hear them, would we find them funny? Would we have the frame of reference? So like how deep do you want to go with your role playing and getting into character and the mindset of some entity or being that exists in a period of time and space that has no relation to this world, let alone this time in this world. So, there's always going to be levels of anachronistic and offsetting comments, even with the gameplay focused group. They'll do the same thing. Even when they're in character, there will be comments and stuff made that are not that their characters couldn't make if they were real beings living in that world. The words they formed couldn't be formed because they don't have access to that information. So that's one interesting aspect, and something that I know that I need to keep an eye on, and to try to maintain a level of patience in order to make sure that the players are like, I should have asked that player, is that what your character said? When your character said, yeah, f this, let's go do it, right? I should have asked, hey, did your character say that to the rest of the group at dinner, or is that just you saying it out loud? And that's on me. I'm the DM, and if the fun is ruined, that's on me. At least in this instance. Now, in another instance, where it wasn't on me, the same group, the social group, is exploring in the depths of Castle Ravenloft in Barovia, and let's see if I can keep this spoiler free for people that aren't playing this. Obviously, if you're my players in the Curse of Strahd campaign, you're there, you did this, so no spoilers. But several of the characters found themselves trapped in prison cells. The DCs to break these bars, the difficulty in breaking these bars through physical strength, was very difficult, to say the least. And it would definitely require 2 or more characters to do so, or to even have a chance to do so. And or using some type of a crowbar is one of the things that they had at their disposal. Yeah, they'd have, even with the crowbar, or with 2 people with doing the physical, trying to break the lock, it would take. I think the best they could achieve is if they rolled a 19 or 20, so 10% chance, but they could be there a long time, and this is why it's a problem, because the social group is very, very interruptive. I mean, you guys know this. If you're one of the players, you know that you guys are pretty good at just like throwing out, I want to do this, without wait a minute, what else is going on at that moment, right? And that's fine, but what it causes me to need to do in order to keep things in some type of order is, while the party is going through Castle Ravenloft, I've got to keep everybody in initiative, because if I can say, no, it's not your turn, then that at least gives the space for another character to do something. But it slows things down quite a bit, where, in the old school Dungeons & Dragons, it would be, okay, what's our marching order? And then you set that up, how far apart we are, who's in the front, that's the leader, and okay, we go down this, we take a left, we take a right, the other people in the back, they just keep quiet until something happens, or somebody's needed, or something sparks a conversation within the dungeon, which is also has its downsides of boringness and monotonity. Sure. So, either way has drawbacks, but one noticeable thing with what I'm needing to do is put everybody into initiative even as they're going downstairs, where there's no encounters on this pair of stairs, you know. And so that exasperates the problem when players get bored, because then they want to start doing things. So there they are, each taking their turn, and traps go off. They get put in jail cells magically, and then one player is able to use the crowbar and break themselves out. Great. And then there's at least two other characters in cells at that point after the first one breaks free, and they're trying to figure out how to open it, and the physical strength isn't working, and they're getting pretty good rolls, so they're discouraged and to continue trying that way. One player saying, I've got the crowbar. But at the very beginning, even before the one character got out, one character said, hey, or one player said, hey, my character has thieves' picks and can try to pick the locks. Now, they didn't know this, but the lock picking is the DC, the difficulty of that is a lot lower than breaking the jail cells open. And so, it takes a while for that lockpicking character to be able to get up to the jail cells. Difficult terrain. I'm not going to get into it in case people are going to end up playing it at some point, and then there's spoilers beyond that, so you don't know what jail cells in Castle Ravenloft I'm talking about. So it's going to take this character with the lockpicks a turn or two, probably 2 turns, to get up to the first lock to try to unlock it. But because of the turn system, the other players are feeling, they get bored in between the turns, because everybody's feeling like they've got to do something during a turn to play, right? And so that's why I'm second guessing whether this is the best way to organize the exploration. Because in large part, a lot of the party, whether it's the characters or the players, they're very, ooh, what's this type of players, which is, again, not a bad thing. So, ooh, what is this? And then they'll go check it out. But then when you've got like 3 players all like, oh, I want to check this out, I want to check this out, it helps to be able to break it down into initiative order so that you can address each one in an appropriate allotted amount of time, and then go to the next player appropriate allotted amount of time, and so on. So, yeah, rambling a little bit, but I'm not real sure if there's a better way to do the exploration other than to keep them in initiative. And but the thing I think I need to let them know is, sometimes, especially if there's not combat, especially if nobody is in combat, if your character does not have the skills for a certain task, it's okay to say, I pass. Or it's okay to say, you know what, unless something changes, my character is going to ready, to attack anything that comes out of the comes into the doorway, or anything that rushes into the room to attack us. I'm gonna attack it. I'm just ready, watching and waiting. And then I can just, you still waiting? Yep, great. Skip that. Okay, now the player's up to thing. Do the lockpicking. Great, you're out. Because maybe there's other things that are coming, or maybe there's not. But you want to keep that tension up, because you're in the bowels of Castle Ravenloft. It should be a little tense, but it shouldn't be boring. And that's what I'm worried about. I don't want it to be boring. But so during this time, I've got several other players that want to do something. One's thinking about doing acid, or some type of acid on the locks to help break that, and that might work, but it also might ruin the lock, and it's not worth the character with the lock picks to stick their metal lock picks into a molten pile of acid goo, because that would just ruin the lock pick. So there's not. And then on top of that, it was, okay, oh, my character's got the lock picks, I can come and unlock them. And then the players never acknowledged that, because again, they're very, ooh, what's this? And part of it is the problem of it being in these turns, so players get bored and they start thinking of other things and not listening to the rest of the players and what they're doing. And then they aren't imagining themselves in this situation, and they aren't remembering or keeping it in their mind that this player's character said, I'm going to come and do the lockpicks. And then, another player is, wanted to try to jam it with something, or I forget. There was one other, and so it came down to almost after every person's turn, or right before every person's turn, for about 3 character turns, not rounds, but turns, where I'd have to say, and remember, this character is approaching to use the lockpicks. And then okay, next person, and then people would start talking about, oh, I'd be able to do this, and maybe I'd be able to do this, and it's like, well, again, this person is on their way to come and do the lockpicks. Give that a shot. And so, then the character got there, did the lockpicks, took one round, and it didn't unlock. But then the next round, it unlocked for them. And then I believe they unlocked 2 other cells, and in both cases just rolled fantastically and just pop, open the cells. So now I'm giving them a bonus to unlocking the cells because they've kind of figured out how the locks are configured. So, yeah. But they probably won't get locked in any more cells for me to give a bonus to those particular jail cells. Such is life. Anyway, so the takeaway is I'm having a lot of fun, and I enjoy playing in both groups. But it is interesting to see the problems that arise when things are played kind of fast and loose, and then need to be reined in order to make sure everybody at the table has a moment, and then figuring out how to let the players who don't have something to do during non-combat to be okay with just kind of sitting back and cool, and not doing crosstalk so you can't hear what the person that is doing something is doing. And because again, past 20 years, I've been playing in gameplay focused games, and so and also for most of the 20 years before COVID, we're all in person live. So crosstalk was usually minimal. Did happen, but it was minimal, and when everybody is focused on that kind of stuff, then it never felt like anybody was at risk of getting bored. Where in this, it feels like when the crosstalk really starts to come up, then people are getting bored, and I want to avoid that and figure out how to alleviate player boredom when their characters need to just sit back and let other characters shine in those moments. It's like in one of the one of the sessions of the Curse of Strahd, the party separated. One's heading to a lake, tracking something or somebody, because again, I don't want to give spoilers to people that haven't played it. And then the other party is heading back to a location that they've been, and it was nice because based on everything that had gone down, I could work it out so that it wasn't exactly at the same time, but it allowed me to run 2 combats for 2 groups who were separated, but do it at the same time, so I could keep everybody on the same initiative and just kind of go through, and then it wasn't much different than a full party encounter. It was just a full party encounter split between 2 spaces in the world. And in that you could really see, you've got these two players that are doing the tracking, and they're communicating and they're focused on each other, and they're like, as soon as their turns come up, it's like, okay, what are we doing? I'm okay. And then they've got special abilities that allowed them to go into water and deal with an event, and that was spectacular. And the other group is there, and they've got abilities and stuff to deal with that encounter, and it worked out really well. And I almost killed one of the players, great, but didn't kill him, so even better. But I don't know. There's always a joy in causing a player character death as a DM, as long as it's well done and adds to the story type of thing. And it always sucks when it's just kind of a meaningless, oh look, the henchman bonked you and you're dead type of. That's always sad to have happen, but it's rare for that to happen. And then not as rare, but both are still rare for players to die in 5th edition, at least so far. So yeah, it worked out really well with the two different combats, and that was great. That's fantastic. Yeah, and at least then, when it was players who weren't with the group that was being focused on at that time, the other players could mute or could do their own thing, and they didn't have to pay attention. It wasn't important for them to. They shouldn't be paying attention, basically, because their characters shouldn't know what's going on. So, so then that way, when they met up, they could each retell the story in their own characters' words, and embellish or not the story as they saw fit. So yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's the whole kit and caboodle. There is it's interesting. I'm fascinating. It's an academic curiosity.
Why do you always have to take whatever happens to us and shove it up its own ass?
That has emerged out of all of this, and kind of noticing these two things, and it really came to the forefront in the last couple of Curse of Strahd games, because of it was essentially, I think, Dinner with Strahd and then dealing with jail cells, almost, either within the same session it started, or it was back-to-back sessions, and so yeah, you really notice that. And then also, I've gotten into the habit of putting the Pathfinder 2e people into initiative whenever they start exploring, small spaces out in the wilderness. No, because you're just traveling, and I can just call for, what configuration the players are in at what time of day if a random encounter happens, or if some event that I have planned occurs. But in the dungeons and I almost said in the dungeons and in the dragons, but in the dungeons, I put them in initiative order. And granted, it's a smaller group, but it's a lot more, again, because they're very focused. They know they have to wait. They're very practiced in knowing that while they're waiting for their turn to come up, they're doing two things. They are focusing on what their character is going to do on the next turn. So they're trying to figure out, okay, will my character do this, or does my character have an ability or something like that? And they're going over that in their heads. And then they're also paying attention to what the other players are doing. And a lot of times, if one player, moves up in the way of a character, then that player of that character will, yell out, "Hey, get out of the way!" And so that adds just a little bit of extra role playing, because I was going to explain to everybody that you can say one or two words when it's not your turn. I feel like I didn't need to do that. That's why I stopped. But in case you don't know, saying one or two words when it's not your turn is okay when I DM, and then you can do a couple sentences when it's your turn, as you do other things, unless it's like casting a spell, which with somatic or verbal components, because then you're speaking the spell. So yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting, styles of play, and and it shows what people find valuable overall when they're playing, and so you can definitely see that. I mean, it's been 3 years, and uh, they they're definitely more attentive to, or you guys, because you guys are probably, you and the other group are probably the only people watching these things right now. So let's take this in a bit. Yeah. So you, the D&D group, you've been playing for what, 3 years now, and you're definitely aware, and you definitely, I've noticed, uh, uh, increased skill in knowing when to talk in character and when you're not talking in character, and to delineate that. It's still difficult for me on many occasions, as with the Curse of Strahd dinner, or Dinner with Strahd event. Obviously, I think I read that wrong, so my apologies. I'm not going to take it back, because it makes pretty good Strahd saying, fuck you guys." So, and I'm okay with that, because Strahd's not a good guy. Uh, but yeah, so but overall, there's still, it feels like it's plateaued to your comfortable levels, and so yeah, so that's where you guys are comfortable at this level, and yeah, so just so you know that yeah, it will cause me to point out when another player is doing something that maybe you haven't heard, or haven't paid attention to, and also hopefully I will remember to be more patient during role playing moments, so that I get clarification on whether something was said in character or not. You know, because again, I think we're all having fun, and I'm having fun. So, you know, yeah. So there's one player that I played with the game focus group for a long time, for I don't know, 10 years probably, maybe a little less than that, but yeah, probably around 10 years. And I mean, they're a fantastic role player. Like, hands down, one of the funnest people to be at a game table with. Just, in character, uh, very immersed, knows the rules. Yeah, just all around great. And we got along well. We got along real well in person. But I would write walls of text, I don't know, philosophizing, arguing, uh, or musing on something that's happened in game, or some stupid house rule that I've come up with that I think is just great and will really increase versatility, but really it ends up just in the end being forgotten, because it's a waste of time and nobody really cares about some weird nitpick aspect of the game world. Some of my homebrew is all right, but most of it, okay. So, yeah, I would write these, massive emails or long texts. I'm a Melvillian kind of writer. I like long paragraphs and sentences that might be one long paragraph, and I don't have a problem with run-on sentences. Often speaking as I do writing, such as this long run-on sentence. I'd probably edit that a little bit. I don't feel like I got the grammar completely right on it, but that's all right. You can rewind and see how bad it was. So now most everybody else knew or was aware that I didn't want to be an asshole, and everybody else seemed to be aware that I didn't want to be an asshole to anybody in particular. Right? It wasn't directing the assholeness. But I would get snarky. I remember I used to get real snarky and yeah, okay, yeah, I was an asshole. Yeah, I think it's fair to say I was being an asshole. I was attempting to be an asshole in order to elicit elicit humorous reactions from the rest of the gamers. And that'd be great, when it worked. But the problem was with this one player, it almost never worked. And a lot of times it hurt them, which is bad. And I'm very sorry for that. And then after 10 years, I believe that hurt also started to manifest at the table. And so they quit. And it was terrible. It was a terrible loss for the table at the time. And then we gamed for a few more years, and then I took a break. I had to take a hiatus because long story, but there was just too much going on in my brain, and I needed a break, and I didn't want to take out the frustrations I was having on any of my players or my friends, because that's not fair, and much like I think the other player did. They took a break. Anyway, so I took a break for well over a year and a half, maybe even 2. And during that time, the game group I took a break from started playing with the friend that originally left. And they're having a great time. And I've even been invited back to play, and I just feel it's too dangerous of ruining that friend's time if I come back, and I don't want to ruin their play. And I have no idea how I got here from all that, other than I'm terrified that making this particular video will be taken as me being an asshole to any of my gamers and friends, and I really hope that isn't the case. And for me, everything's a learning experience and trying to figure things out and trying to dissect things. And often when you try to dissect things that are attached to human beings, those human beings can feel like they're being poked and prodded unfairly. And so I did get everybody, both groups, permission to be able to just kind of ramble on about our various games and game antics in public to the entire universe. And so with everybody's permission, I feel okay in discussing these musings of mine without it being hurtful. And I really like if anybody's hurt by this, let me know, in private or in public, and I will not do another one of these, because I really don't want to hurt anybody. And also, I told everybody that I wouldn't use their names except for Phil. I get to use your name, Phil, mostly just because you probably hate it, but in a fun way, because you know that I love you, and you kind of love that I love you, and so you love hearing your name. Maybe that's it. It's just your ego. Your ego is what lets me use your name, Phil. Well, like and subscribe, and hopefully this all recorded correctly, and hopefully I get it edited out. I bet it's going to be late, but we'll see. Did I say like and subscribe and do all that crap? I probably did. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't like and subscribe. Don't do it. Ooh. Don't like and subscribe. No, now that's getting weird. All right. See you next time. I can't think of the word. The semi-prof.